We're focusing today on Lisa Highfill, who has done something that we've found to be a real challenge for many of the districts we work with. And that is getting clear buy-in from teachers, school leaders, and school boards for the professional learning work that they're doing. So the two goals here are for you to use her story as inspiration as you're planning your upcoming PD, and then to be able to take or adapt the framework she's used for really getting that buy-in so that you can influence meaningful change through this work. So I am excited to introduce to you one of the most passionate educators I know, a seasoned speaker, author, and former fifth grade teacher, and she is now an instructional technology coach at Pleasanton Unified School District, Lisa Highfill.
Thanks so much, Victoria and Chris, for having me on to talk about what we're doing in Pleasanton. I have to say I have a coaching partner, Scott Padway, and we are try to just mastermind this and figure out the best way that we can move teachers to not only learn something new about technology and integrating it into their curriculum, but how do we also shift instructional practices so that kids can learn in the best way possible. Well, so we always say, we should be practicing what we preach. I want you teachers, I want you to do this with your kids. And yet, how many professional development opportunities do you go to and you sit there and there's slides. And the slides don't pertain to what you want, what you need. And you feel like you wasted your time because you're sitting and listening. You are not an active participant. We're telling our teachers to make learning active and to get kids participating, yet we're training them in the opposite way. It seems so frustrating. I know I've sat through sessions like that, and I thought, that we could do better. So here we have, all these teachers who are at different levels of ability, and we in different comfort levels of using technology. We needed to personalize the professional development for them. We needed to differentiate our instruction, just like we're telling them to do with their students. And yet, as challenging as that is, we had so many teachers to be training. It was the game changer for us in our professional development. In order for our teachers to trust us, that what we're having them do is not adding to their plate. We're trying to make what they're doing more effective, actually. They needed to trust that we listened to them and that we were going to meet their needs, and they weren't going to come and spend a day doing something that they didn't need or didn't want. So that was the first step. Coaching is about building trust with teachers. We also needed to get the trust from our curriculum directors and administrators in the district that, what do you mean you're giving them a whole afternoon of free time? We want them trained. And we found that when we asked our teachers what they wanted time. I mean, that's the number one request. They want time. They want to work with their colleagues. They want time to apply what we've taught them. And typically you would leave a training and then you go home. It's like giving homework to the teachers, which is not fair, right? So we know we needed to build professional development that was respecting their needs, their interests, and their time. And so we started to survey them. We started to ask them that and gather information and really study that part. How could we group these teachers? How could we put them into either grade level groups or project interest groups or ability level groups? This could be around digital workflow. It could be just their use of Google Apps if they're comfortable. Some teachers were ready to go off and build more curriculum and ready for the blended learning instruction. So we really divided up teachers according to these groups and built our training sessions for the days based on what they wanted, very specific. And so once they came to these trainings, it was incredible because some really wanted that full day training and that work time built into it. So full day training doesn't mean that I'm talking full day or filled full day. It means that I talk for a small amount of time and give them their tasks and let them explore and then and apply the knowledge. And then where am I during the professional development? I'm definitely not checking my email. I'm sitting with small groups. I'm working when they get stuck, when they're taking risks, which I just loved because teachers started to try out web tools that were really, that they had seen earlier. They're like, I remember this one, I really want to make this work. I want to build a lesson around it. Where do I start? I could sit down and work with that teacher in a small group to meet those kinds of needs. And then as we were working, and I always say this to teachers, that while if we're up lecturing, we never can kind of get the gist of where our students in our classrooms are at. Well, the same goes for when you're doing professional development. If you're up front, showing your slides, you really don't know where people are at. And as a coach, I need to know to what depth people are getting it, where they're still struggling, where their interests are, where can I go next? How can I follow up? Because our coaching model in our district is after we do these large group or small group professional development, we make appointments with the teachers one-on-one. And I needed to know, how can I follow up with them? What lesson did you work on that day? What was a struggle? I knew I'd send you back and you'd be working on the creating blogs, and I'd have to come in maybe and work with your class at the same time. So it was really a great time period while we were doing the professional development, studying our teachers. We were watching, we were observing, we were in with them instead of lecturing at them. So that brought about some challenges, though. There's a lot of teachers we were training, a lot of small groups, a lot of different needs, and I struggle with the organization piece. I really do. I mean, I had done some surveys before. I'm not a data analysis person. It's probably my weakest area. And my follow-through was really, I think, the weakest of what I was doing in this whole project, or this whole big picture. I knew what some of their needs were. I could sort of track their progress. We would survey them and they would say, oh, we liked it, or we didn't like it. And, to be honest, that we would kind of say, oh, good, they liked it, and kind of brush off those, oh, they're just like that. But, when we needed to get deeper, why aren't you liking it? What's going on that we can help improve that? And what could be some next steps to fulfill some of those needs? That's where I struggled the most, and really was excited when I was connected with an organization called KickUp, who helped me through this process.
So I'll jump in and kind of talk a little bit about what the impact was. So you talked a little bit, Lisa, about capturing that impact was something new for you. And the reason why we wanted to do this webinar and this discussion was because we did see really interesting evidence of impact. And so it's clear that the work you're doing is affecting change in your district in a way that I think is really intriguing and is a great baseline for future work. And so just to kind of brag about Lisa a bit and make sure we can all examine this together, a few interesting data points came out of the work that we've done in conducting an impact analysis with a tool that we use. One of the main topics that Lisa looked at was creating active digital learning experiences. So she trained teachers on a number of strategies and practices that fall under this umbrella, and we captured levels of consistency and comfort with implementation in both the training group and teachers who are just getting started with this with Lisa. So she can use this both as a baseline and as a point of comparison for impact. And you can see across every grade level that the group that has been training with Lisa is significantly more confident and consistent in their implementation of active digital learning experiences. And the practice is aligned with those. So that's a promising data point to start with. But if you look across, we captured a couple of different strands or practices, and even in areas in which Lisa hasn't yet begun training, and this is more of a baseline, you can still see that the trained group is significantly more confident and consistent in already trying these practices. And to me, that says that she's kind of broken this barrier of fear of trying these new practices. So these teachers are experimenting more often and more consistently with all kinds of digital practices. So that's also really promising and really will be really interesting over the next year as we track kind of the progress and needs over time as she's continuing to work with these groups. So this is also, that's your numbers and your hard graphs. But the most interesting impact data was also just in some of the trends in what teachers are saying they have implemented, or what evidence of implementation and change in practice we're seeing. So there were 4 main trends that teachers had noticed in terms of just their own mindset and willingness to explore new technologies and look at how to transform their lessons.
the transition to creating more doing rather than talking in lecture, so active learning for students. You know, I love this quote where the teacher says, "I've learned to let go and have the students figure it out." It truly has become a technology lab for the students to explore. And so you can see this level of student ownership evident in some of these teachers' responses. My students are collaborators and problem solvers with their new digital skills, quick to experiment and happy to teach each other. And I think it's a real testament to the way that they were trained with Lisa. And this is my humble opinion, so you can obviously correct me, but giving them the space to explore in sort of a laboratory setting, in an active learning setting, you can see in their own practice they are feeling less fearful of doing this with their own students, and they're actively creating new workflows and new ways of running their classroom that previously it says, you know, I have a long way to go, but I'm no longer afraid but excited. So that's a really great thing to read, Lisa.
Yeah.
And so one more data point that we found really interesting. You know, we wanted to dig deeper into what we might not be seeing through the work that you've done with them, Lisa. What else is going on that's leading to this shift and change in practice? And so when asked this general question about what specific experiences and supports have helped them shift or improve their use of technology, they mentioned these 4 trends, but what's striking is that 89% of the teachers who had been trained mentioned Lisa by name or coaching with technology coaches in the district. So I think that's a really key data point as districts are thinking about, you know, what's the most cost-effective way to go about this. Coaching can be tricky. It takes time and it takes, you know, real dedication and resources. But you can see in the teacher's reaction that it's not just another thing, it's something that they actively notice is contributing to a change in their practice in this particular scenario. So that's sort of why we wanted to highlight what Lisa is doing, is because it's not work in isolation, it's work that the whole community is starting to notice, and that's what we want for all PD initiatives. So that's really interesting. I think, Lisa, we'll hand it back over to you just to talk through a few final pieces and some questions. So
yeah, I think the key in looking at that data that you shared, Victoria, is I'm so excited to see the results. Is that we need to treat our teachers like we expect them to treat their students. Our teachers are our students, and it's so important that we train them or teach them the same way. And so I love looking at the examples of things that the teachers created that day. Everyone had something different. Everyone was working on their interest level and their ability level and their needs for their classroom. And I love to see that with student work also. I don't want my students creating 33 of the same thing. So here we have examples of what the teachers created. I see they're working on digital portfolios, they're working on multimedia tech sets, and they also have HyperDocs in here and student productions using video. It's really exciting. Oh, and a website. So having different projects that they're working on, allowing them that freedom to do either one of any project that they wanted to. That's that buy-in. And when they mentioned that they like the coaching, or whether it was me or my colleague Scott or Sarah or Kelly or any of my colleagues who coach, it's that trust. They know that we're there to support them in the work that they want to be doing. So I think that is good. I think definitely when it comes to these takeaways in this training that we're building, because I'm so in progress with this, you know, we are always trying to look back and see what we can do to improve what we're working on. I think the key to it was that our planning was really specific. We really wanted to build off of what teachers wanted. We wanted to listen to them, and when you give a survey, we wanted them to actually realize that we're not just giving it, we're actually listening to it and building our professional development based off of that survey. That was a huge shift for us. And they noticed because it was unlike anything they'd seen before. We wanted it to be hands-on and differentiated, and over time, giving them a chance to choose how they wanted to work, who they wanted to work with, and what they wanted to learn, instead of coming in and me telling them, this is what you're going to learn today. And I think being able to then measure afterward, I so appreciate. I think for me, I wouldn't have been able to do all of this without looking at the data from KickUp and the way it was presented. It gives me some of that follow through that I can go to actually do individual coaching and meet and continue the process. Because again, even though we did these trainings, we did a series of them. In the elementary school, we did 3 a year over 3 years. In the middle school, then our plan was to take it in and do it in 1 year over 3 trainings. Still not enough. You know, it takes a lot to learn how to really teach well in a blended learning model. We needed to go into the classroom and work one-on-one with teachers for that continuous improvement. And so that's where the data came in. Teachers could then express to us what they needed, and then we could build coaching model that fit that need beyond just the professional development days.
Great.